So, have you ever just stopped and wondered, what is it that makes you, you? Well, today, we're going to jump right into that. We're exploring one of the biggest questions in psychology. Why are we all so incredibly different? I mean, really think about it for a second. Sure, you might have your dad's laugh or share a love of bad movies with your best friend. But when it comes down to it, there is only one you. From your weirdest quirks to your hidden talents, what's the secret recipe that makes you who you are?
Okay, let's get into it. To even begin to understand what makes us different, we have to start with the two big ones, the powerhouse forces that have been shaping you since day one, nature and nurture. Now, in the world of psychology, this isn't just some casual observation. It's an entire field of study. Individual differences. That's the official term for all the variations we see in people, from how smart they are to their personality to what they're interested in. The whole shebang.
And you know, it's really a constant dance between these two. Nature, that's your genetics. It hands you a kind of blueprint. You get your eye color, sure, but you also might get a predisposition for certain cognitive traits. But then, nurture, that's your environment, your education, your culture. That's what takes the blueprint and actually builds the house. It's what shapes your potential. But here's a fascinating little twist. For all our talk about being unique, if you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, most of us actually land in a surprisingly similar range for a lot of our traits.
And this picture shows that idea perfectly. It's a bell curve, or what's called a normal distribution. Think about height, right? Most people are somewhere around average height, and very, very few people are super short or super tall. Well, it turns out that a lot of psychological traits work the exact same way. So yeah, we're all unique, but we're kind of playing in the same ballpark.
So, if these differences are real, how do scientists go about studying them? I mean, how do you actually measure something like personality or intelligence accurately? Let's take a peek inside the psychologist's toolkit.
This quote right here, this is the whole game. The goal is to get way beyond just saying someone is smart or outgoing. It's all about creating systematic, scientific tools that can measure these qualities with as much accuracy and as little error as humanly possible.
So for any psychological test to be worth anything, it absolutely has to have these three things. First, it has to be reliable. That means if you take the test on a Monday and then again on a Friday, your results should be pretty darn close. Second, it must be valid. Does the test actually measure what it says it's measuring? You know, an intelligence test should measure intelligence, not just how good you are at trivia. And finally, it needs standardization. Everybody has to take the test under the same conditions so you can actually make fair comparisons.
Okay, with that foundation in place, let's look at some of the big things psychologists try to measure, starting with our abilities. Now, these three words, intelligence, aptitude, and achievement, they sound kind of similar, but in psychology, they mean very, very different things. First up, intelligence. I really like this definition from the psychologist Wechsler. He didn't see it as just being book smart. He saw it as this big global capacity. It's about how you use your mind to purposefully and effectively deal with the world around you. Pretty cool, huh? Next, we've got aptitude. The key word here is potential. Aptitude isn't about what you can do right now, it's about what you could learn to do with the right training. So a test might show you have a high aptitude for music, even if you've never touched a piano in your life. It's all about what's possible for you in the future.
And finally, there's achievement. This one's the most straightforward. It's just a snapshot of what you've already learned. Your score on that history final you took last semester, that's a measure of your achievement in history. Simple as that.
Now, you've definitely heard of an IQ score. This whole idea was first cooked up by a German psychologist named William Stern way back in 1912. And originally, it was calculated with this really simple formula. It's just a comparison between your mental age and your actual chronological age.
Let's make that real for a second. Let's say you have an 8-year-old kid who can solve problems that an average 12-year-old can solve. Okay, so you take their mental age, which is 12, divide it by their real age, 8, and then multiply by 100. Boom! You get an IQ of 150. It's just a way of putting a number on how advanced someone's thinking is for their age. But hold on. Is intelligence really just one single thing? Not according to the psychologist Howard Gardner. He came up with this game-changing idea of multiple intelligences. He argued that we all have a mix of at least 8 different kinds of smarts. Maybe you're a genius with words. That's linguistic intelligence. Or maybe you're amazing at understanding other people. That's interpersonal intelligence. It's a much bigger, more colorful picture of what it means to be smart.
All right,
let's shift gears. We've talked about abilities, but what about character? What about those consistent ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that really define who you are? Let's unpack personality.
So the two key words here are stable and consistent. Your personality isn't just about how you act in one random moment. No, it's about those patterns that keep showing up, again and again, in all kinds of different situations and over a long period of time.
So how do you even begin to measure something like that? Well, psychologists have a few different approaches. The most direct is a self-report, where you just answer clear questions about yourself. Then there are projective techniques. This is where you might look at an ambiguous ink blot, and the way you interpret it is supposed to reveal your inner workings. And finally, there are situational tests, where they put you in a specific scenario and just watch how you behave.
So after all this talk about tests and measurements and scores, you gotta ask, what is the point of all this? Is it just about slapping labels on people and putting them into boxes? Well, no, not at all.
And here it is. This is the real takeaway. The whole point is to gain self-knowledge that leads to growth. When we understand our unique mix of abilities and personality traits, we can find careers that fit us, we can nurture our true potential, and we can build lives that feel authentic.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. We've looked at the building blocks and the tools that psychologists use to figure out what makes you tick, but at the end of the day, the most important view is your own. How do you see all these different pieces fitting together to make you, you? That's all for this one. Thanks for tuning in.